Hello everyone and welcome to another Starfield video. I'm your host, Colors Fade. This time I want to talk about Encumbrance. Specifically, I want to talk about why this is such an overblown topic and far too many players are unnecessarily worried about it. Recently, Paul Tassi, a game journalist for Forbes, posted a link on Twitter to an article he wrote about the puddle exploit on Aquila that allows players to effectively rob one of the vendors in the town without repercussions. And in that article, he mentioned how ammo-starved Starfield is. Now, I like Paul, and I find a lot of value in his writing, but I felt like he was dead wrong about this point. As you can see from my screenshots, I have no shortage of ammo for all the guns I carry. 2,300 rounds for a Peacekeeper, 3,100 rounds for a Magshare, over 5,000 rounds for an Orion, and over 12,000 rounds for a Beowulf. This is all around level 30. There's no shortage of ammo in this game if you know how to do two things: handle the vendors, and if you're willing to play encumbered, which in reality is no big deal. I made a reply to Paul on Twitter that basically what you need to do is loot everything while you're on missions. And then when you go back to a major city, first buy all of the ammo that the vendors sell that you want for your weapons, thus pumping up their cash reserves before selling all of your loot back to them to empty their pockets. This nets the player both ammo and cash, which is a win-win in my book. But Tassi took issue with my suggestion to loot everything, and that prompted me to make this video. Now, I can sort of understand this because one of the most common complaints I've seen about Starfield since its launch is the way it handles encumbrance. Characters have very little carry weight, and the game throws all kinds of loot at the player, creating a situation where a lot of players feel like they can't loot very much, or they're forced to be choosy and only loot the special items off enemies. I disagree with this notion. I'm here to tell you that you can safely loot everything. I say that because the penalty for being encumbered is trivial. For starters, when you're encumbered, your oxygen depletes, but it still takes a while before it actually depletes to the point where CO2 starts to build up. It isn't until CO2 buildup reaches its max that the player starts taking damage, and it's trivial damage at that. Tassi's concern was that on missions, it would be unwise to be encumbered, but is it really? I've played the entire game so far by looting every enemy, locker, and container I can find as I go through a mission. I'm often encumbered within the first minutes of a firefight, and yet I never have an issue. The footage I'm showing here is of a planet with 1.2 times Earth's gravity, a location where being encumbered should have an impact, and yet it doesn't hinder me one bit from mowing my way through the enemies. Now, consider that the vast majority of planets in the game have even lighter gravity, and you might start to see how being encumbered simply isn't a big deal. Part of this is because you can negate some of the oxygen depletion with aid items in your inventory that allow your oxygen to refresh slightly faster. Another tool at your disposal, probably the best tool, is an artifact power that you'll get access to later in the game that gives you a full refresh of oxygen while also completely negating any CO2 buildup. It does this for a short period of time, and it's super helpful. But the third thing is, there are multiple chances during combat to simply sit for a spell while hiding behind cover, for example, while you reload weapons. And during this time, your oxygen will refresh. Again, aid items improve this refresh rate a little bit. At no time during any mission have I ever felt like my encumbrance was a detriment. The penalty is simply not significant enough to matter, and when it starts to come into play, it's fairly easy to negate it. For me, I'd much rather have all the loot. Now, I know someone is going to bring up fast travel. When encumbered, you can't just hop instantly back to your ship, or anywhere else in the galaxy for that matter. But here's the thing. The vast majority of the time, fast travel is unnecessary. When you're embarking on a mission where you'll encounter a lot of loot, you're either docking with another ship or a space station, or you're landing right next to a location where you have a quest. In two of these situations, your ship is literally an airlock away. The need to fast travel is non-existent. In the third situation, you're only going to have to walk a few meters back to your ship. So ask yourself, what would you rather do? Shave a little time off the trip back to your ship while only holding on to a few pieces of rare loot? Or would you rather have all the loot and a ton of ammo? The choice here seems simple to me. I'd rather have the loot. The bottom line is that the penalty for being encumbered isn't significant enough to warrant avoiding encumbrance. And since the penalty is the same for being 1 pound overweight as it is for being 500 pounds overweight, you might as well grab all the loot you can. I think people have simply overblown the whole encumbrance issue. It's not a problem. Starfield has far worse issues, like figuring out how many clicks to get to the center of Todd Howard's damn Tootsie Pop. I mean, come on. Shouldn't 1 click be enough? So there you have it, folks. My take on encumbrance and loot. I say you should loot away. Loot it all. It's not a big deal. The encumbrance is a non-issue in my eyes. Have fun and happy gaming, everyone.